Has there ever been that time when you sit back and think about a game that you thought was truly perfect? A game, no matter its genre, length, age, or platform, it was simply the best possible experience it could have been. For me, that game was a special game, a legendary game. And the name of this game was Bubsy 3D? Damn it, I always get this part wrong. Let's just get this out of the way. Super Mario World is one of the best games of all time, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that statement. It's undeniable that it truly was a landmark title and truly shaped a whole new generation of gamers. For many, Super Mario World was the game that introduced us all to the world of 16-bit gaming, which opened up tons of new possibilities for the gaming industry. I of course am fond of this game and do consider it one of the best Mario games or just games in general. Now, when talking about this game, usually people bring up the original Mario trilogy on NES and how it shaped this title, and while I do think it's cool how this game improved upon pretty much everything those games had, I really don't want to look at this game as a sequel. If we consider the fact that Mario World is in fact a sequel, then yes, as a sequel, it improves upon everything its predecessors had and is one of the best sequels of all time. But I'm here to take a look at this game as its own thing, ignoring the past games for the most part and just looking at the game at face value. I want to express what makes this game one of the best, so I think looking at it as its own thing is the right thing to do. Well, that's enough of me talking about rambling about Super Mario World. Now it's time to actually start rambling about Super Mario World. Alright, so starting off, let's not even bother with the plot of this game, because you all already know what it is. Despite being on better hardware than all the previous 2D Mario games, Mario World does nothing new to evolve the plot of the series. The plot acts less as a way to tell a compelling and strong narrative, and is more about being the setup for things you do in the game. Now, in case you're wondering, this game takes us to a new location known as Dinosaur Land, with, you guessed it, dinosaurs. Dinosaur Land is a beautiful and vibrant area that is incredibly fun to play through. Now, I do admit, this game doesn't really play that much into the whole dinosaur theme. The areas themselves don't really feel at all prehistoric. Outside of the dinosaurs that feature in a couple of levels in the game, nothing about this screams Dinosaur Land. I feel like the dinosaur thing was more of a marketing thing to appeal to kids in the 90s than anything else. And if that is the case, then I really think they could have played more into the dinosaur idea. Now, of course, this thing doesn't really bother me, but it is something to think about. Now, when it comes to the design of Dinosaur Land, that's a whole nother story. All the levels in this game are accessed by the world map, and we already have something great in this game that we can talk about. You see, world maps aren't anything new in the Mario series. They actually made their debut in Mario Bros. 3. But you see, what makes these two games' world maps completely different is the fact that Mario World focuses on being an interconnected world. What the game lacks in an ambitious story, it makes up for with overall ambition. Super Mario World makes you feel like you're going on a grand adventure. It's no longer just random stages that are slightly connected to each other. No. It truly is you exploring and adventuring through a whole new world. The map itself is split into different segments, each looking different from the other. Each level in the game is a representation of an area on the map. If the area is mostly green grassland, then the levels are green grassland. If the area is located underground, then the levels will be underground. If the area is in a forest, then the levels will be in a forest. It's things like that that make Mario World seem pretty impressive, but it doesn't stop there. What makes the map truly special is the way it affects the levels and vice versa. Throughout the game, you can find these P-switch buildings, and after entering them and collecting some coins, you press the main switch, which gives you access to new areas in the game. Levels with silhouettes of blocks now transform to actual blocks, which for the most part give you access to new parts of the level. Speaking of levels, now is a great time to talk about the levels of the game, and to simply put it, Super Mario World has some of the best levels in video game history. The level design is really good. Now, I'm no game design expert, but I do understand the basic concept of designing a good level. How it works is that you start off with a simple concept, implement it in an easy and understandable way. Then you evolve that idea by making it more complex and challenging. Then after that, you give the idea a bit of a twist to surprise the player and to change things up. And finally, you end things off by showcasing everything from before in one final challenge before ending the stage. This is the basic design philosophy that Super Mario World uses, and it's a concept not new to the series. The thing is, Super Mario World utilizes this concept to its fullest, partially because of the fact that this game is on better hardware than the previous games. The Super Nintendo was a 16-bit console, which was more powerful than the 8-bit NES. To simply put it, this game was capable of just doing more things. The most obvious thing is of course the graphics, and yes, they really are good. Everything about the graphics is all fun and cartoony, and the usage of color is really appealing. But beyond graphics, it was also able to produce larger, more expansive levels than any other game beforehand. For the first time, you could explore a level and search around for different secrets. Now of course, you didn't have to do this. You could still find enjoyment from playing the game normally, but exploring was really the highlight. You could find secret bonus rooms, alternative pathways, and second exits would take you to brand new levels you couldn't access by going through the regular exit. This changed the way people could now play. With the ability to access different exits, it meant that there were different ways to actually finish the game, meaning not everyone's playthrough is necessarily the same, and each replay could be a different experience for some. Mario World really was an ambitious title. I mean, keep in mind, no platforming game was like this up to this point. Oh man, does it just get better from here. Alright, let's finally talk about Mario now. Mario in this game controls really well. His jump height is perfect, running is fast and fun, and his momentum has never felt this good. The control of Mario in this game is easily some of the best in a 2D platformer. Now, Mario's moveset has seen quite a few changes since its last appearance, ultimately for the better, with the biggest new addition being the spin jump. Now, the spin jump sounds like one of the dumbest ideas for a Mario move, but believe me when I say this, it's one of his best abilities yet. The spin jump not only allows for you to interact with enemies in different ways, but it also allows you to interact with the level in a different way. Using the spin jump allows you to break blocks underneath you, essentially acting as a way to dig your way through a level. And this adds a whole new level of versatility to Mario, essentially acting as a way to descend through a level as opposed to climbing it up vertically. You can also use the spin jump to easily kill enemies, as well as using it on shell enemies to jump higher. And overall, I just love the amount of versatility this jump gives you, from allowing you to descend, ascend, and kill an enemy. It's great. Interactivity is definitely a key thing when it comes to this game, partially due to the fact that the Super Nintendo controller has way more button inputs than the NES controller, so it definitely makes more sense for Mario to be able to interact with the environment in way more fun and unique ways than ever before. For example, picking up things is a common thing you'll be doing in this game, usually as a means to defeating enemies, to complete obstacles or levels, or to unlock bonuses and secrets in the game. Throughout the game, Mario will be picking up new items which all do unique things, from P-switches which turn coins into bricks and vice versa, keys which unlock secret levels, and Koopa shells which are not only used to attack enemies but are also used to interact with the environment to unlock secrets. Another new thing Mario World adds is new blocks to interact with. Now I've already mentioned the yellow blocks which can only be destroyed by doing a spin jump, but you also get these glass blocks which spew out randomized power-ups, and these floating blocks which fly you around the area, and these on and off blocks which can be used for puzzle solving. They even have these cute little hint blocks which help you throughout the game, and sometimes they even add story details which gives you some semblance of a story throughout this game. Come to think of it, I haven't mentioned a lot of the gimmicks this game has, and by all means there are a lot of gimmicks this game has, usually in the form of level gimmicks though. But this is a good thing though. Usually when people hear the word gimmicks, they think of something tedious and add-on for the sake of changing up the gameplay. But Super Mario World's gimmicks are fun, creative, and refreshing, and this is where the game truly shines. Since Super Mario World takes place in one gigantic island as opposed to different segmented areas, the game obviously has more of a consistent theme than other Mario titles, but that doesn't mean the game isn't lacking in themes. No, this game still has a lot of creative level themes. Now, of course, in a giant prehistoric island, you're not exactly gonna have a desert theme, but you can still do creative themes. There's levels that take place high in the sky, there's levels that take place in the mountains, there's forest levels, underwater levels, levels in lava castles, and of course, one of my personal favorite themes added to this game, the ghost houses. This is where the game features a lot more exploration and puzzle-like design, but it's still fun. This is probably the best example of a gimmick I've seen in a game. It still manages to be fun and interesting, while at the same time sticking to what the game's all about, fast, fun, platforming action. On top of that, it's just visually good to look at. So much atmosphere and creepiness involved, a great contrast from the more colourful aspects of the game. Now, of course, Super Mario World wouldn't be Super Mario World if it didn't have classic Mario enemies to face, and thankfully, most of the original bad guys return in this title. Now, everyone knows how you attack a Mario enemy. It's the most basic thing in a game. All you do is jump on their heads and blam, they're dead. But Mario does something different. Now, in most Mario games, the first enemy you ever encounter is usually a Goomba, mainly because they're the easiest one to defeat. All you do is jump on their head and that's it. This game, on the other hand, does something different. The first enemy you meet is a Koopa. Now, Koopas aren't new to the series, they've been around since the very first game, but it's kind of odd that they introduced them in the first level. Well, at least it seems odd until you play more of the game. Now, as I mentioned earlier, because of the Super Nintendo having more button controls than the NES, there were more action buttons you could use, one of the main things being grabbing stuff, and now it makes perfect sense why Koopas are used in this game. Since this game emphasizes the action of picking up stuff, it makes perfect sense to use an enemy like a Koopa, since they're familiar to most Mario players, and while they do just that, emphasize, picking up stuff. This game features tons of different variations of the Koopa Trooper, with their different colored shells representing the different actions they can do. There's also a variant with Ultra Shell, which sort of acts as the Goomba of the game. Speaking of which, what happened to the Goomba? Well, as stated, the shellless Koopa sort of replaced the Goomba, but Nintendo knew they couldn't just not have a Goomba in the game. It's the most iconic Mario enemy, so what they did was this. Yep, this is the new Goomba of Super Mario World. Now, the reason they look different is to emphasize their new gimmick, the fact that you can't kill them. You see, the way these Goombas work is that you can only kill them by picking them up and throwing them at something. Again, this was done as a way to emphasize the whole picking up and throwing stuff in Super Mario World. And I guess it kinda makes sense. After all, we're not in the Mushroom Kingdom, so I guess having a different version of a Goomba kinda makes sense. In fact, in later appearances of these Goombas, they'll be referred to as Galoombas, which just emphasizes the fact that they're variations of the original Goombas, not flat out the Goombas. But we didn't know that at the time, so for most kids in the 90s, people were pretty confused on what the hell these things were. Well, that's enough talking about the original Mario enemies that feature in this game. Now, what new Mario enemies does Super Mario World have? Well, quite a few. We have Monty Mole, a mole-like enemy that likes to follow Mario around and copy his abilities. We have Mecha Koopas, robotic versions of Koopas that you can pick up and throw into other enemies. And one of my personal favorite, Charging Chuck, a literal football player. Again, this is probably one of those things that's just there to appeal to 90s kids, but who cares, I love this guy. Super Mario World is just full to the brim with different and creative enemies you face in this game, whether old or new. In fact, one of the highlights was seeing Mario enemies from Super Mario Bros. 2 USA. If I had to mention one negative thing about the enemies, it would probably have to be the boss enemies, i.e. the dinosaurs and Koopalings. And it's not because they're bad boss fights or anything like that. No, it's mainly due to the fact that they repeat themselves a lot. And it's not like they repeat themselves and get more challenging. No, most of the time it's basically the same fight with little to no changes outside of the different sprite of the enemy. Otherwise, Super Mario World probably has some of the best Mario enemies in the entire franchise. They're all fun, have memorable designs, and actually pose a challenge throughout the levels. But of course now, as some of you may have noticed, I've left out a crucial thing about this game, and it's the fact that you can't have a Mario game with Mario enemies without Mario power-ups. If there's one thing synonymous with the Mario franchise outside of the character himself, it's the power-ups he uses. Ever since the first game with that iconic mushroom that makes you go bigger, power-ups have been a staple of the entire franchise. Every game, from the mainline titles to spin-offs, have all utilized power-ups in some way, and this game is no exception. To simply put it, Super Mario World had a lot to live up with in terms of its usage of power-ups, especially coming after the fan-favorite Super Mario Bros. 3, which not only featured the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman, but also brought in brand new power-ups like the Tanuki suit, the P-Wing, and the Hammer suit. So to say it was a lot of power-ups it had to live up to was definitely not an understatement. So starting off, Mario World features the return of the fan-favorite power-ups, the Super Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Starman, all playing the same like previous Mario games. And there's nothing more I can say about these power-ups that hasn't already been said. The Super Mushroom turns Small Mario into Big Mario, allowing him to get one extra hit point before dying. The Fire Flower is the projectile ability, allowing you to shoot fireballs at enemies. And the Starman is the invincibility power-up, allowing Mario to stay invincible for 10 minutes, allowing you to run through enemies without dying. And that's all you need to know. Okay, that's not true. There is new things Mario World does, like this new item block system, which allows you to switch between different power-ups in-game. So let's say there's an instance when you're playing as Fire Flower Mario, but you want to switch to a different power-up. Well, at the tap of the button, you can switch to a power-up you've already stored earlier on, and blam, you're now in the new power-up. And this is a fun system. Now, it doesn't add too much to the game, but does help you in harder, difficult stages in the game, and adds a little bit of strategy. But enough about that stuff. What you're all here is to learn about the new power-ups Super Mario World has. Well, these are the new power-ups. The feather, and that's it? Yep, Mario World only adds one new power-up to the game. Oh, okay, that's not true, but I'll get to that later. With the feather power-up on, it turns Mario into Cape Mario, which not only gives him a super cool look, but also gives him one of his most versatile movesets yet. It allows Mario to attack enemies from long distance and allows him to fly up in the air and glide, which gives him insane distance in air. Cape Mario is used in a lot of instances where you have to find secrets located up in the air. So what you do is run on the ground, gain speed, and bam, you're able to float temporarily and hopefully find some secrets. It also helps players in more challenging parts of the game, as it slows your descent when jumping, allowing you to recover when you do terrible jumps that would most times lead you to death. Overall, Cape Mario is a good addition to Mario's lineup of power-ups. Now, even though it's the only power-up really in Super Mario World, it's still pretty versatile. It's basically a bunch of power-ups put in one, and I don't really mind that. Now, I also mentioned that there were other power-ups in the game, which I don't really consider power-ups, but what did I mean by that? Well, the first one I'm about to talk about is the P-Balloon. What the P-Balloon does is that it inflates Mario kind of like a balloon and allows him to float in the air. Now, the reason I say this isn't a real power-up because it only appears in a few levels, and even when it does appear, it's only situational. It's used in instances to find secrets, to unlock new levels, and to even complete an entire level. So that's kind of why I don't consider it a real power-up. You see, in most Mario games, power-ups are just extras. They're add-ons that you can use to improve the experience, but you don't need them to complete the game. In the instances of P-Balloons, they are made for specific tasks. You can't just use it whenever, you have to use it in the specific instance it's given to you. Now, to some, that might have felt like a weird experience, not having a power-up you can just take wherever. But to me, I've always thought of it as the precursor system to what we would eventually get in Super Mario 64, the successor of Mario World. I didn't stutter. In Mario 64, power-ups were used less as a way to give Mario more power and were more situational. They were used more like gimmicks to help you complete a mission and not much more. And this is not a bad thing. In fact, I kind of like the system, and we can definitely see some of these elements in Mario World with the P-Balloon. Ultimately, the P-Balloon was a decent power-up to Mario World. Now, it wasn't particularly fun to play with, but it did at least change up the gameplay, and that is something to commend it for. Now, what's the final power-up I've neglected to mention? Well, this is an interesting case. Some may not even consider this a power-up. Instead, they consider him a person. You see, the final power-up I'm talking about is, of course, Yoshi. Yoshi is the biggest addition of Super Mario World. No doubts about that. Yoshi is what makes Mario World Mario World. It's what makes the game special. It's what gives it an identity. What pushes the game from just being great to truly perfect. Yoshi is one of the first examples of a character you can actually properly interact with in a Mario game that wasn't simply an enemy. And to many, he was a fan favorite and people did really get attached to him. But you see, Yoshi is more than just a companion in this game. He truly does assist Mario throughout his journey. Yoshi gives Mario more speed and a higher jump, already making him a great asset in terms of platforming. Yoshi is also able to eat up fruit and enemies, which is not only just a fun visual, but also adds to that frenetic fun energy that Mario World just emphasizes intensely. Yoshi is also a very varied character in the game. What I mean by this is that you can find different colored versions of him, and while it may just seem cosmetic and looks cool, that's not all it just is. Remember earlier on in the video when I talked about the Koopas and how each Koopa has a different colored shell? While when a Yoshi eats one of those different colored shells, he gets different cool abilities. When Yoshi eats a green shell, he can spit it out really fast and make it zoom past the stage, and this is really good when there are big rows of enemies on the ground. When he eats a yellow shell, it increases his speed and makes him run faster. When he eats a red shell, he can spit it out and make fireballs produce. And finally, when he eats a blue shell, it gives him wings and allows him to temporarily fly. All of these are just unnecessary additions that Mario World didn't need to do, but the fact they went that extra mile just shows the amount of detail this game has. I find it funny how many of the game developers of this title will tell you that Mario World was a rushed and unfinished game, and while yes, there's many cut content from this game and it was rushed, I never feel that way. Mario World to me feels like a fully realized title. Even if the game has tons of cut content, it still feels like it's complete. It still feels larger than life and has tons of detail, and I just love it. I mean, come on, I've been talking about the game for so long now, and I haven't even mentioned the music yet. Alright, let's talk about music now. Super Mario World has one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. The music is fun, catchy, memorable, and iconic. Now, while we all know that Mario World's soundtrack is great, the question I'm asking is why is it? Why do we love this soundtrack so much as opposed to any other Mario soundtrack? Well, I think the main reason is its storytelling capabilities. Mario World's soundtrack, in my opinion, is one of the first examples of a soundtrack that's used for the narrative. Now, most previous Mario games would have video game soundtracks in them, but they would only have a few songs in them, and while some songs would correlate to a certain level theme, they mostly just loop the songs throughout the levels. This is mainly due to the fact of the limitations of the NES. But you see, the SNES didn't have those limitations. It could do more music than the NES, and with Mario World focusing on being one grand adventure, Koji Kondo, the composer of the game, decided to use the music to emphasize this. Throughout the game, Mario World uses an iconic musical idea known as a leitmotif. Now, in case you're wondering, a motif is a short musical idea that's meant to represent something. In the case of this game, Mario World has a main theme that represents the game as a whole. Now, the main theme and the subsequent motif are first introduced in the overworld theme, which plays in the first level of Super Mario World. This is the main variation of the theme you'll be hearing throughout the game, and mostly plays in levels that take place in the overworld, hence the name Overworld Theme. The theme itself is fun and catchy, and really conveys the whole identity of Super Mario World. As we know, the overworld isn't the only level theme we'll be seeing throughout the game. We also have underwater, underground, and ghost houses. Now, the underwater and underground themes have appeared in previous Mario games. Now, in previous Mario games, the style for the underwater levels would usually be a waltz type of feeling. While underground levels would have deep basses. Now, while the underwater themes in Mario 1 and 3 don't really connect to the main theme of those games, the underground themes, well, don't also connect, but they reoccur through both games, and that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Now, take a listen to the underground theme that's in Super Mario World. You hear that? It's the exact same theme as the overworld, except now it's a more subtle variation, and the drum loops in the back harken back to the underground themes of past Mario games. Now listen to the underwater theme of Super Mario World. hear that? It uses the exact same theme as before, except changed a bit, and it goes for a sort of waltz style like previous Mario games. It's this approach to Mario World soundtrack that I really love. The stylistic elements give it this sense of environment and tells us exactly where we are on the world, with the main theme reassuring us that it's still the same island even if it's a different location. And all of this makes Wario World feel like, well, a world. Everything about the soundtrack is so freaking great, from the usage of drums to give it that island vibe to the usage of even more drums whenever you ride on Yoshi, which gives the soundtrack a dynamic feel. It's just all great. It's great, it's the best, it's perfect. Those are all the adjectives you need to describe what Super Mario World is. Super Mario World is just that. Super Mario World encapsulates what every perfect game should have. It's fun, it's charming, it's well designed, it has fun gameplay mechanics, the graphics are amazing, the soundtrack is amazing. Everything about this game, if I had to just put it in one word, is amazing. Super Mario World was definitely not an easy game to make. I mean, doing the Mario thing for a fourth time is definitely gonna give a strain on some game developers, but somehow they did it. Somehow they not only managed to top what they did before, but they downright excelled. Super Mario World is the best Mario game in my opinion. Every Mario game that came afterwards takes some inspiration from this game, whether it's soundtrack, its colors, its approach to level design, whatever. All games afterwards would build on the foundation that Super Mario World laid. Hell, even 2D games not related to the franchise would still take elements from that game because of how perfect it was. Super Mario World is a perfect game, and I don't know how many times I've said that throughout this video, but it's true. Everything I've just mentioned about this game is just pure magic. Everything. And with all of that out of the way, this was the magic of Super Mario World. I actually didn't think of a way to end this video.